Ladies and gentlemen, His Holiness Tenzin Gyatso, 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet.
How's it? A very strong light. May I put this? Okay. You also, I think this one. Oh, you also have. Same, isn't it? This one. My dog. Oh, I see. Long time, my friend, two friends, in fact, elder spiritual brothers, a Christian brother and two Christian brothers. So, and then brothers and sisters. I am extremely happy, great honor, sitting with these spiritual brothers together. These days, I felt I am quite old, 77. With them, I'm younger. Firstly, the institution, Kasari Center.
Dalai Lama Center for Ethics and Values, Human Values.
They organize this gathering. So thank you very much. Thank you. And not only just on this occasion, but they carry some sort of serious program. Actually, I think different part of the world. So I appreciate, thank you. Our main aim is promote human values, ethics. With sense of global responsibility. It is our entire 7 billion human beings' interest, better world, peaceful, better, ultimately not matter, not power, not material facility, but inner peace. Even animal, some inner peace there, then their attitude become automatically more peaceful. As a result, surrounding much more calm. So, the ultimate source of peace is here. Not on paper, not on nice speech, declaration. So, after I received Nobel Peace Prize, the money which
Comes with the price.
comes with the prize, I set up one organization as a global
Foundation for Universal Responsibility.
in India. There are some more other places also happen. Some centers quite active, some center a little bit sleepy. I think here seems quite active. So I'm very, very happy. So now here, Kasa,
Beyond religion.
my talk, ethics beyond religion. Actually, this sort of name, beyond religion, sort of global ethics, this is not my sort of recommendation. The publisher made that. So I a little bit sort of anxiety, right? Anxious.
Anxious now.
The beyond religion means it is something better than religion. Not that meaning. Beyond religion means it is not relying on religious faith, but actually basis of all major religious tradition. Any tradition which emphasizes the importance of love, compassion, forgiveness, so that's the universal value. So itself, we can consider something separate from religious belief. Because, you see, these values actually, biologically, you see, create this potential. So when we are born, the affection from our mother is most important factor for survival or proper growth. Some scientists, you see, they told me that after birth, next few weeks, simply mother's physical touch is the major factor for proper development or proper sort of enlargement child's brain. Obviously, even animal, we can see the youngster with mother much happier. Separated, then
Anxious.
much sort of the
Anxious.
anxious. So that's biological factor. In fact, all major religious tradition is strengthening that thing, love, affection, and utilize different philosophical views to bring firm conviction. These are fundamental value. That's my view. Isn't it? Okay, okay.
You
Say
agree?
that way.
Completely
I have to seek, you see, they are not. If they say that, I have to take very seriously. So, I think according to theistic religion, you see, God creates humanity or whole world. So the Creator Himself, full of compassion. So logically, you see, those creatures created by God, you see, must be compassionate person. If some aspect of Creator, a lot of anger, a lot of jealousy, Then we creature also you see can practice that, can practice or can
Those qualities.
can 가서다.
Develop those qualities.
No, let.
Right.
그 공도도 나게 사리데 그쭉 쳐가서 그렇지.
So in that case, if we were created in those kind of way, then we can let these negative qualities flourish in us.
Since Creator Himself these things there. No, absolutely not. God means infinite compassion, infinite love. So logically, the creature should sort of follow or should sort of copy
Right.
God's sort of what's the quality. That's love. Then non-theistic religious tradition also. You see the emphasis on law of causality, cause and effect. So cause now here, or effect, or experiences, feeling pleasure and feeling of sadness or sorrow, pains. These related with its own causes. Now, since these experience, feeling are part of mind, so its ultimate
Causes.
important cause, major causes must be on the mind. So therefore, mental level, any sort of kind of mind or emotion which harming other, the result, you will suffer. Emotional level, something, desire to help them, to bring joyfulness, to bring happiness on other. Because of the nature of that emotion is that kind, so result or consequences will be you get benefit. So that's according the law of causality.
Law of causality.
Law of causality sort of philosophical thinking that way. So both same aim. Person who follow this tradition should be more compassionate person. Now, all religious tradition, you see that. But basically, these are a biological factor. At the time of our birth, no religious faith. Family background, we say, oh, this is Buddhist, this is Christian, this is Muslim. But actually, the child, no idea about religion. But the child, before even talk, even before open eye, when I born, my sister, elder sister, is taking care me. So she told me, my one eye, this one, I can't remember. One eye closed, one eye little open. So then my sister opened that eye. So anyway, like animal, we notice it's a very young baby. Before open their eye, they already sort of know the mother's, what's it,
Milk, yeah.
the small one.
Teats.
No,
teeth. Teats, injit. Simjenla, teats.
No.
Teats.
I don't know, you see. that you see, that kind of pimple.
Nipples.
Which milk come. So these, you see, these young sort of baby, even before open eye, you see, they try to find that. Once they reach their mouth, very peacefully, very happily sucking milk. So that's a biological factor. And the mother's side also, tremendous sort of affection to the youngster. This is a biological factor, not religious matter. So I'm saying that that's, I want to show, to tell people, affection, compassion these are not religious business. If you have religious faith, wonderful. Practice these things and further increase these things. Even no faith about religion, you should not forget these values.
These qualities.
Oh,
These qualities.
these qualities. This is for your own interest, for the happier days and months like that. So that's the main thing. So that what say? Usually I call secular ethics. Now, when I use the word secularism, not at all some meaning of negative towards religion. No. My friend, some Christian friend, and also some Muslim friend, they have some kind of reservation. The word secularism. Secular. They feel secular means a little bit negative towards religious faith. According to Indian understanding, you see, secular means respect all religions and also including non-believers' view. So I think naturally, when independent India was established, the continent multi-religious sort of society. So therefore, their constitution deliberately based on secularism. So secularism means respect all religions, no preference in this religion or that religion. So when I use the word secularism, secular that way. So my brother, do you think secular means a little negative towards religion or not?
It certainly involves different perspectives. Some people understand something different, but your explanation of it sounds very solid.
According to you?
Yeah. Normally, we would use secularity in a different way, but the way Your Holiness has described it, it expresses what we call sacred secularity, that everyday things, everything in everyday life is sacred, because
sacred.
the divine is in it. It's holy. Everything's holy.
Sacred secularity.
I want to make clear. I think during French Revolution or Bolshevik Revolution, I think the movement is some kind of the attitude against religion. But that not necessarily religion itself, but rather religious institution.
Right.
Because the religious institution is very much linked with the elite group.
Ruling elite.
Ruling elite. They really suppress the people, exploit people. So, while they against that sort of ruling class, since the ruling class received blessing or support from religious institution, so automatically some kind of negative attitude towards religious institution. But not religion. I think hardly anyone who against compassion, who against, the human affection. No, how can even animal appreciate our affection. Then those revolutionaries to the movement people were naturally, how can they against human spiritual brotherhood, sisterhood, based on compassion and practice of forgiveness? Like that. So therefore, now here, in practical level, out of 7 billion human beings, quite a big portion of that population, not much interest. Even those people who say the religious sort of follower, but day-to-day life, not much concern about the religious sort of the advice. There are a lot of people who suppose believer, follower, practitioner or follower of Hinduism and Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and so on, and Buddhism also. But their real life, they don't care. What is the religious
Teachings.
What's the teaching? They don't care about the teaching. They carry corruptions, cheating other people. Or frankly speaking, sometimes I feel religion, if not properly sort of practice, then religion also give us practice of hypocrisy, pretension. Oh, I'm holy. Whatever I say is God's instruction. And then some faithful people easily manipulate. Dangerous. So therefore, there are such people. They claim themselves as a religious person, but in reality, they don't care about this real sort of teaching. So that's what is lacking about that is they have no firm conviction about these basic values. So therefore, and also you see, the major portion, or at least
Major part of the world.
at least some portion of the people, not much interested about religion, then these also part of the humanity. They also have the responsibility to build a happier world. So they should have motivation and vision, better world, happier world, equal world, right? And more peaceful world. So these people just self-centered attitude and indulge all sorts of the activities. That's why a lot of unhealthy things in the society. So now in order to bring conviction in this such non-believer's mind, it's useless to say, oh, Buddha said that, or Jesus Christ said that, Allah said that. No. So we have to sort of educate them. I think mainly scientific finding. Then also our common experience and common sense. We can educate them for your own happy life, happy family, happy community. The compassionate sort of feeling, compassionate attitude is the key factor. Firstly, we are a social animal. Individuals' sort of happy life or even survival entirely depend on the rest of the community. That's the reality. If you develop extreme self-centered attitude, then you actually isolate from this society. It is a big contradiction. The society is the basis of your own happy life. Now that basis of your own life, you against that or because of the
Neglect.
neglect. How can? So, I think like 신부지기, 신리야, 그래서 로달이야, 개천부지기야나 신스시대 자심을 찍으러다.
So just as a farmer who really cares for a good crop would take seriously the soil that he has on the farm. So the same way.
Oh. So the society, now, particularly today's world, each individual's nation, their future, like United States, their future, very much related with the rest of the world, and European also. Your sort of successful future, very much related with the rest of the world. So that's today's reality. Then on top of that, the ecology, global warming. Not question of this nation facing problem due to global warming, this nation or that nation in particular. No, entire humanity facing. So, new reality show us this 7 billion human being must work full cooperation and take sort of the common responsibility. So now the way educate that, few sort of priests like you, like me, not sufficient. Maybe during this sort of the preaching or people showing some interest, then afterward disappear. So we have to sort of also work from kindergarten up to university level. Educate, like health sort of education, right? Usually health education, mainly physical health. Now, equally, the mental health is equally important. So why not education about mental health? Not talking about heaven or hell, or Buddhist, not talking about nirvana or next life. Simply, how to build happier world, happier human community, less sort of violence, ultimately related with here. So, in education field, some kind of teaching of ethics or moral ethics that strictly based on secular approach. So that's the meaning of
Beyond.
ethics or beyond religion.
No.
I want to tell you, of course, last few days I expressed these things. Now here I maybe another point, with permission from these two elder spiritual brothers. Because sometimes you see in religious field, they little bit sort of the male yatsiyati.
Dominance.
Dominance, male dominance. Right? Oh. So here is my point is, say, I think 100,000 years ago, or million years ago, of course, then people I think everybody equal. Marxists say original communism. Everybody work together, and whatever they get, share equally. Then gradually, farming system developed. Then population also increased. Then some problems among the community. Then it's the idea of injustice, right? So then the concept of leadership used to come. So at that time, no rule of education. So in order to become leadership, only physical strength, like animal. Social animal, right? Social animal, their leadership physically more stronger. So that become the leader or dominant. Then eventually education come. Education develop. Education brings more equality. Male. So therefore, at that time, since physical is the key factor in order to become leader, then male dominance is eventually developed. Generally speaking, of course, some female physically very strong, particularly in this country, some are very, very, very strong. So then education comes. Education brings more equality, right? More equal. So now my point is, now we are 21st century. So we need some effort, promotion of human compassion. In that respect, biologically, female have more sort of sensitivity about others' suffering. I think most of the war hero, actually murderer, most of them male. So I think biologically, some scientists, you see, they have the view, according to their sort of research. Two person, male, female, watching one sort of movie picture. There one very person, painful sort of experiences.
Experience.
Then the response from two person, one female, one male, the female more sort of stronger response, heart beating, or the difficult sort of breathing, these things. So these are not due to religious belief, but biological factor. So therefore, at a time when we need some serious effort to promote human compassion, the female should take more active role in this field. So that I want to share. I want to tell you. So, finally, people in this hall, perhaps 2,000, over 2,000 people, each one should feel, each one have potential, make some contribution for a better world. Should not think helpless. Sometimes I also do feel that way. Just a single person. How can you make some kind of difference? Then think the worldwide movement. First start from individual. I think inner peace. First, individual should create. Then in the family. Then your neighbor, say 10 families, 100 families, 1,000 families. That's the way change. Like
when you drop a pebble into the water, you can see the ripples starting from the center and spreading outwards.
So that's the way any sort of the movement start from individual, not from government, not from sort of highest as an organization like UN. No, I think ultimately we individual should take initiative on your own sort of level, then share with more people. So think each one has certain sort of opportunity or responsibility there. So think more and keep enthusiasm to do something. Then, like me, now most part of my life gone. So perhaps next 15, 20 years maybe. So then at the end, I really it was departing from this world with full satisfaction while I'm alive. I made
My life.
I said my life meaningful, and I make effort, no regret. All these sort of goals, I never expect materialize within my lifetime. So if you think a certain goal or should materialize within my lifetime, otherwise it's no effort, that's wrong. We have to think humanity. Humanity means generation to generations. Kunisa domzang mare.
Laril.
Nisha domzang ro. Monk.
Laril.
Christian monk. So we three, no children. But we have to think about other sort of children, grandchildren. We have to think, isn't it? So at the time of his death, you really feel then, no regret. I done my own share, maximum way. Whenever opportunity comes, I made attempt. No regret. At that time, those people who have a lot of money in bank, no single sort of
Penny.
a penny they can carry. Very powerful, but at that moment, no use. Beautiful physical at that time, no use. Only memory, what you've done while you are alive. I done sincerely some good thing, some positive thing. At that time, you get maximum satisfaction, peace of mind at that moment with this sort of, your meaningful life, like that. So, finished. Now, some comment or some criticism or some objections, most welcome. Yes?
Your Holiness.
And perhaps I may add something. I think our sort of tradition, the study, we use a lot of sort of logics. So we more or less trained for your own view. Some opposition comes, then you see they argue. That we from childhood we train that. So I would like to have that kind of opportunity to use.
Your Holiness, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Liz Walker, Reverend Liz Walker. I am the transitional pastor of Roxbury Presbyterian Church. For many, many, many years, I was a television journalist in New England, and I have the amazing role. I have the amazing role of being called to facilitate this extraordinary conversation, which in fact is only going to be I'm going to sit here and learn and listen, as all of you, except for I got a better seat than anybody else. But to facilitate that, I'd like to formally introduce our other guest this afternoon, very briefly, and then you will both respond to His Holiness' remarks. First of all, Father Thomas Keating is a Trappist monk, Order of the Cistercians of the Strict Observance, and a priest. He was born in New York City and attended Deerfield Academy, Yale University, and Fordham University, graduating in December 1943, and he is well known as the founder of the Centering Prayer Movement and of Contemplative Outreach. Brother David Steindl-Rast. Brother David Steindl-Rast was born in Vienna, Austria. He studied art, anthropology, and psychology, receiving a PhD from the University of Vienna. And since 1953, he has been a monk of Mount Savior Benedictine Monastery in New York. He was one of the first Roman Catholics to participate in Buddhist-Christian dialogue. And Brother David also co-founded www.gratefulness.org. I am... And so now to formally respond, we're going to begin with you, Father Keating.
First of all, I'd like to tell Your Holiness how deeply grateful I am for your initiative and your example. I've come a long way today to visit you, even though I'm a little older than you. Your example of compassion and love is touching many people, and I think is pointing to something desperately needed in our time, which is inter-spiritual dialogue. That is, the awareness of the mystery or the reality that is beyond us, but that expresses itself in the evolutionary process in different religions, and now in a special way in science. Science has become a voice that has to be heard from the perspective of revelation. Early Christian writers, in fact, had no doubt about it, saying there were two books of Revelation. One was the Bible for that particular tradition. The other was nature. Well, now nature is not just looking at a sunset. It's looking at the very sources of reality itself, at the infinitesimal, and at the same time, the immense that is becoming immenser. The galaxies going in every direction. Where are they going? What was there before they came? Will it ever end expanding? These are questions that teach us something about the creative forces of nature, whatever your particular understanding of them, and invite us to see reality with a new truthfulness based on the evidence that science can give us, both in the external world and in the study of the human person, especially the brain, which so far is probably the masterpiece, the human brain, of the evolutionary process, and an invitation in its capacity for change and improvement to move humanity into areas of development and compassion that have never been possible before, that now are within a reach because we can extend our senses through science, to through technology, to the whole mysteries of life. And well, who fixed this thing this way? It raises questions in the reflective mind, but there are different ways of looking at this vision. And God, to use that term, which is not the only term for the mystery or the reality that is ultimate and beyond any conceptual accuracy in describing, this God seems to be inviting us to depths of intimacy and relationship. Being is perhaps another word for relationship, or vice versa. So the vision of God sharing with us the divine life, the happiness that is without limit, seems to be the direction in which the evolutionary process has gone. Up till now, it seems mostly biological evolution is pretty well complete. We've got quite a few people on Earth. The challenge is now to look at the spiritual or the development of consciousness that is beyond biological. Not against it, obviously, and built on it. But the possibilities then, if we can listen to the voices of what might be called today the apostles and prophets of serious and technological science.
I think he's trying to catch up.
Then, please? Yes, is inviting us. And so I'll just conclude my response by suggesting that this initiative seems to be begun here at MIT is to invite people to think of a religious ethic or a value system for life that is not dependent on the teachings of the various religions, because it's obvious they disagree. So what His Holiness seems to be suggesting in his book, Beyond Religion, are several very general principles that underlie particular specifications of ethical issues that could be left to each religion or nationality or race or however it's divided, while providing the globalization that is inevitably taking place with some principles that everyone can agree to on the basis of being human. And he suggests one of them, because I know there's not enough time to go into all the wonderful things in his book, but it's the interdependence of everything created or everything that manifests in the visible universe that is becoming a common intuition that is now backed up by serious science, which is saying the same thing from the particular technology and evidence of science. So this is an initiative that has tremendous possibilities for humankind and religion as well. And that's why I wanted to come to show solidarity with this purpose as a Christian. There are many ways that God draws people to himself. Religion is only one way, but it's an important way, and probably will continue for some millennium to be significant because it provides a foundation that in some ways has to be transcended as our experience of life and of God continue. So suppose we just say, as a suggestion, we could sum up this new spiritual invitation to move into the unknown and the uncharted possibilities of human consciousness when it's been raised above the rational capacities, which we have not quite arrived at fully, but is certainly manifested in a technological way like today. So put it this way, what is the beginning of this journey, by whatever path you are gifted with, towards transcending the limitations of rational consciousness and allowing the human family to continue to evolve? Well, the first one might be called a realization there is an other, capital O. This is the moment of conversion by whatever path you're drawn, whether it's art, science, conjugal love, deep friendship.
He's catching up with us.
Yeah.
Go.
So at some moment in our lives, you may have an experience of a mysterious presence that has no form or reason to be, and you have no background to know what it means, but you have the experience. And so to know that there is a higher power, a creator, or a reality that is, as science is telling us, is vastly bigger than our ancestors had. Finally, the next step might be to become the other, capital O. And this is the territory of religion or paths or self-help groups or service and everything else. This is where religion is crucial. And that moves towards union and unity, and perhaps the ultimate state that hasn't been achieved by most of us is the realization there is no other. There is no other. Everything is a manifestation, a real manifestation of the source. And that source is inviting, especially all thinking beings, into the very life of God, into the happiness, into the compassion. And it's out of that space, or that touching that level of human experience that so many mystics have reported, that one can live ordinary daily life as in the womb of God, and all the other people or realities as growing up and finding themselves in God. I think we can all understand that if you're in a womb with somebody else, it's a good idea to get along with. You don't have to be a mother to know that. So we're growing up in God. And evolution is this growing process, and death is the birth canal into the divine life itself, or eternal life. It has different names. And this is the journey that has been promoted in the world's religions, and it's that cream that must be allowed to come to the top, so that we not only respect other religions, but can love them for the manifestation that they offer of God.
Thank you.
You can.
Well done. Brother David?
Would His Holiness like to respond? Because otherwise we get onto another track. Or should I say something now?
I think it's
would be better?
Yes,
All
please.
right.
Colors.
Also, of course, I'm profoundly grateful for the opportunity to be just in Your Holiness's presence and for the witness that you are to so many people for compassion and wisdom in the world. The word God was used here, and that is a word on which we have to be very careful, because in the interreligious dialogue, particularly with Buddhists, that has been a very problematic word. I think the way Father Thomas expressed it, I can agree to it. One has to be careful that the word God, that we make it really clear that God isn't somebody, and as a brother of Father Thomas Merton, whom you well know, so wonderfully put it, above all, God isn't somebody else. God isn't somebody else. You are it. And God is a name for that mystery. It's a word that stands for that mystery that surrounds us and with which we are as human beings, not as anything else, but just as human beings confronted with this absolute mystery. We don't know where we come from, we don't know where we go to, we are confronted with this mystery. Life itself is a mystery with which we are confronted, and we have the choice to either trust it or distrust it. If we distrust it, it's the end. We get from one problem into the other. If we trust it, it's a great experience, and it has its ups and downs, but that is what faith is called. And this is my first opportunity in public to thank Your Holiness for writing the foreword for my book about the Creed, in which I express that. And the great joy, and I'm sure it will be a great joy for Your Holiness, is that many people in the Catholic Church and Christians in general have said, oh yes, this is what we really believe, and we are glad it's expressed in that way. And I have had, so far, no problems with any authorities. In fact, bishops have also said, yes, we would put it differently, but it's undeniable. So we are on the right path in expressing it this way. God isn't somebody else. But our relationship to God, this faith, this basic human trust that unites all religions and is just differently expressed in the different religions because they arose at different times and under very different cultural and historic circumstances, but it's one basic human trust in life, trust in that mystery. That is often in a course, it doesn't fit the institutions that somehow stand for this faith, the religious institutions. And Your Holiness referred to the French Revolution, and that was such a clear case, because at that time, before the French Revolution, the church in France, the authorities, the institutional church was really totally enmeshed with the power structure. And the French Revolution stood exactly for what Jesus' message stood for, opposite to the institution. Fraternité, brotherhood among all people, against exploitation. Liberty was primarily for those poor people who revolted there against violence. Of course, unfortunately, the revolution became violent, but that was not the ideal. The ideal was to be against war, because they were the poor people that were constantly fighting the wars for the ones that were sitting up there, and those were the kings and the princes and the bishops. Fraternity, égalité, and liberty, the freedom of the children of God. They stood for the things that Buddha and Jesus stood for. And Buddha and Jesus realized this through small communities. So I think it can only be lived in a small community, in a non-violent, sharing, caring community that, as Your Holiness said, spreads then one community, another community, until the whole world is more peaceful and different from that power structure. It is a non-violent revolution against that power structure. And my questions to Your Holiness would be, first of all, how can we help people through education? This is the most important tool, but how can we help people to bring these ideas from the head into the heart? Methods, how to bring it from the head into the heart, and to overcome the fear that immediately arises when you have to stand up against the power structure, which is very, very strong, not only outside, but even inside of us, because we have interiorized it. So how can we bring it from the head into the heart, and how can we stand up fearlessly in this world?
좋은 가자. Firstly, I want to share with mainly my two spiritual brothers the promotion of religious harmony, another my commitment, rest of my life I fully committed. I think maybe you already know. Whenever I participate in the interfaith meeting for promotion of understanding among different traditions, my usual way of approach is firstly make clear all the differences. Then these differences actually for same goal. In the philosophical field, a lot of differences, even among Buddhists, different philosophical views. As a matter of fact, Buddha himself, you see, taught contradictory, different philosophical views. So I often, you see, expressing with respect to Buddha, these contradictory philosophical views taught by same person, Buddha Shakyamuni. That does not mean his own mind still not very clear, little confused. So one day he teach something, next day different teaching. No. No, he deliberately tried to create more confusion among his disciple. Certainly not. So then answer is, according different mental disposition among his own sort of disciple, everybody listen him and respect him and see his sort of presentation is logical like that. So therefore, you see, he never sort of imposed his sort of certain views. He taught according disciples' mental disposition. So therefore, among the disciples, different mental disposition, so he compelled to speak different views, different philosophical views. So what we learned from this, then naturally, the last 2,000 to 3,000 years, you see different places, different area, like Arab, India, and Egypt, and some other places, the climate condition different. Therefore, people's way of life also different. With that, different cultural heritage. So with that, different mental disposition. Therefore, you see, different time, these great
Teachings.
Teachers, you see, came and teach according
The need.
their sort of mental disposition. So it helped. It sort of get immense inspiration from millions of people, not only in the past, but even today and future also. Therefore, you see, doesn't matter the different philosophical views, same purpose. Then main sort of message or practice of love, compassion, forgiveness, all these things. So that, I think, almost same. One time, I visit one Muslim community. So the leader, their religious leader, you see, express any genuine practitioner of Islam must extend love towards entire Allah's creatures. So therefore, there's no sort of, in these religious true teaching, no because of that discrimination, entire creature. So in my view, one way, all the teaching, the ethical teachings already. Ethical teaching side, same. Practice love, compassion, forgiveness, these things. That's very clear. And then the philosophical viewpoint, there's differences, but same purpose, according different mental disposition. And then I think all religious tradition accept the ultimate source of destructive emotion. Destructive action come from destructive emotion. So all these destructive emotion based on self-centered arrogance. So the Christianity, Islam, and those sort of believe creator, you see the tremendous sort of faith, single-pointed faith towards God, creator. Concept of creator itself is affirming, right?
Very affirming.
Affirming this single-pointed faith. You're nothing but creation of God. So therefore, and one my Christian friend, you see, out of my curiosity, what is wrong if Christian brother or sister sort of accept rebirth theory? And he mentioned, no, this very life created by God. He told me that. So that I feel very powerful sort of the view or conviction. This very life given by God. So you develop some kind of very close feeling with God. And then single-pointed sort of faith towards God, much more stronger. And through that way, you dedicate totally or submission to God. That reduces self-centered attitude, self-centered arrogance. Buddhists use selflessness theory, no independent self. So use different method, but same sort of effects reduce self-centered sort of arrogance. So, in any way, there are many different religious traditions. They are all, if people sincerely practice, then immense benefit like that. So that's my way to promote introduce understanding. No.
류하고 주변도
Now your question.
specific question.
Emotions, animals, we human being, we all have, I think, basically same emotions. As attachment, anger, suspicion, fear, jealousy, all these same, and also affection, limited affection, same. But then, what's the differences we human being from other animals is the brilliant our brain. So we actually, like self-discipline, try to reduce this destructive emotion, actually with help of our intelligence. Emotion there, want to kill, want to hit, want to tell lie. But then intelligence side, oh, don't do that. Ultimately, you will suffer. If you too much tell lie, then nobody trusts you. You become lonely person in deep inside, isn't it? So therefore, you see, intelligence tell us, oh, should not tell lie. You should be honest, truthful. Then you get more friend, more trusted friend. Then your life will be much happier. This intelligence tell us. So anger, again, you see, our intelligence tell us, oh, too much anger, very bad for your health. I think our intelligence may tell if you want to hit something, then intelligence say, oh, without anger, calm mind, analyze the situation, then try to find the weak point, weak spot of that, then hit. So we always say, in order to sort of some kind of guidance, regulate our emotion, intelligence. So sometimes our intelligence, you see, used wrong way, then you see hatred, all these sometimes see increasing, of course. But you properly use our intelligence and sort of proper information, proper sort of awareness, then I think this almost like regulator of our emotion. That's my view. Perhaps in front of two sort of believer or creator, so I will say, the greatest gift from God is this intelligence.
Hear that?
The greatest gift from God
It's what?
is our intellect. Yeah.
Like that. So that's my view. So always go together, intelligence and warm-heartedness. Oh. I think warm-heartedness, we already have biologically certain limited sort of warm-heartedness there. Now, with help of our intelligence, that
Capacity.
also the biological factor, sort of love, compassion, can extend. Now here, I think furthermore, I think the insake of the audience, there are two levels of sort of love or compassion. One, biological factor. Another, that biological factor is always oriented others' attitude. Therefore, that biological factors of compassion cannot extend towards your troublemaker or your enemy because their attitude is negative to you. The compassion based on their attitude. So, the biological factors of compassion is biased. Now use our intelligence. Take that biological factors of compassion as a seed, then further sort of develop
cultivate it.
or cultivate it with intelligence. Then that not oriented others' attitude, but other themselves, like myself. When we feel cherishing oneself, not on the basis of I kind to me, no. Simply I want happy life. So you see, because of that, taking care of oneself. So similarly, other, irrespective whether their attitude is right or wrong, or negative or positive, irrespective of that, but they also, like me, want happiness, do not want suffering, and then on that basis develop sense of concern of their well-being. So that not oriented their attitude, but the people or animal or themselves. Therefore, that not unbiased, infinite love. So infinite love can achieve through use of intelligence. Clear?
Thank you. Very, very
Further question?
Thank you. It's clear.
Any further question?
Only the other question was about the fear, because once we begin to stand up and interact with a difficult world, fear arises. How do we deal with the fear?
I think fear, there are two kinds. Fear. For example, here, strong light, uncomfortable, my eye, a little bit sort of the fear is always.
Afraid.
Some kind of afraid.
Fear.
So that fear brought this action.
Yeah.
So that is good. Then another sort of fear, I think mainly based on distrust of these things and some sort of speculations already.
Yep.
Speculations. And these things, many things just within yourself, not very certain, lack of self-confidence. Then feel, oh, this person also may be different sort of agenda or towards me. This also. That kind of sort of fear is actually your own mental projection. More self-centered attitude, less sort of trust other, less sort of sense of concern of their well-being, then more that kind of fear come. One of my American friend,
Aaron Beck.
Once I met in Stockholm, in Sweden. Then his age already 84. So he told me, when we develop strong anger, then negativeness about the object which we feel angry, is it that negativeness, about 90% of the negativeness is one's own mental projection. Mm-hmm. He mentioned that. He's not a religious person, he's a scientist, like that. So that's very similar. That was some Indian sort of Buddhist psychologist who mentioned that, same. So therefore, obviously fear also is a much mental projection. So these things, I think ultimately due to lack of self-confidence. Self-confidence is developed if you remain honest, truthful, transparent, then self-confidence come. That lie as a hypocrisy or pretension, then more fear, more stress, more anxiety, and then more fear. But what?
And then we shall learn that and drop a couple of there. Chiso, that China, Tango member, the Degaton, and Don Lemon, but check with you, King and Yang the Tigerba. The Telegignangaton and Shumbake, Yungor was.
Fear with reason is good.
Yeah.
Fear without reason. But reason, as I mentioned earlier, much sort of the mental protected sort of reasons also there. Then the discourage way. When you face some obstacle, then discourage or fear. That's something different. Firstly, you have to study the object which you want to achieve. Study that thoroughly, holistic way. Not just according to your own wish, oh, I want that, not that way. Investigate. So thoroughly, not one dimension, but 4 dimension, 6 dimension, with calm mind. Then, once you know the reality, then think whether possible to achieve or not. Think very carefully. Again, investigate. And once say 50% as of the achievable, then decide. There's a Tibetan saying, 9 times failure, 9 times effort. First fail, discourage, is foolish. Must do again. Must do again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Father Keating, I wanted to make sure you had a chance to either respond to His Holiness's words about fear, or I had a question for you.
Well, I'll take a question from you.
It seems to me that the success of this secular ethics all depends on the core orientation of human nature being good. That's what I think I read in the book. Do you believe that we are basically, as humans, good, or are we basically evil?
Well, my opinion is certainly consistent with Scripture, which says that God made everything good, including very good when He got to human beings. So this is a big question, that how did we get into all this trouble with our emotions when we were born right or correctly? And I guess the story of Adam and Eve, however you understand it, is a kind of story of human nature in which we were challenged to the temptation that the devil is allegedly described as offering. I must say it was a brilliant temptation that he offered Adam and Eve. He said, if eat this tree, God is just jealous of you. Eat the fruit and you'll become like God too. In other words, this is the temptation for unlimited power, unlimited glory, unlimited selfishness, unlimited domination. And this is the what we mean by pride that has really no end. So what God... But there was a deep kernel of truth there that we shouldn't lose, that God actually invites everybody into becoming God too, but on His own terms, which are the only terms that could possibly work. And humans want to become God on their own terms. They don't have an understanding of what true happiness is. And I personally think that without some practice of reducing our selfishness in some way through service of others, but especially by exposing ourselves to the deeper level of human nature, which is post-personal, you might say, the level of the true self, a level that is probably God's very presence within us, which is the ultimate self, you might say. And that is what we were created to be. How we got in this position, through a fall or something else. But science is offering us another choice today that I think is serious, and that is, it's not that we're guilty of failing God necessarily. That's one expression, but that should be respected. It's very deep in the tradition. But science suggests that we're just unevolved. We have animal ancestors, and those instincts are still present in us through the brain. You have to have that kind of brain to live in this world.
Sure.
But when the human brain began to expand, the third brain or the cortex, then you had a thinking animal. Still, animal is the main issue. It thinks. So in that, what seems to be the case is that we're evolving from our animal ancestors, that's pretty certain, without knowing at what point we became from humanids to real human beings. And that explains a little why, when we're in trouble, we regress to certain aspects of our former animal ancestors, like in situations of conflict, we think in terms of violence. This is just regression. That's what we did when we were animals. Now we're trying to integrate those animal instincts to be able to live in this world with all its difficulties and emotional stimulation in a way that is forgiving or loving or compassionate or cooperating. In other words, the human way of responding hasn't been established in society as yet. And hence, this may be another way of discussing how the humans, who are good, have so much trouble maintaining it. And certainly as we started out in childhood, we had no idea of who God was. So we had no way of, I use the term God just as a label, as Brother David so well made that distinction. So the child has to have, as I understand it from psychology, correct me if I'm wrong, it has to have enough security, enough love, and enough independence or allowance to experiment in order to live, in order to go on living. And because it doesn't have any reason yet, it interprets the things that bring it gratification of those instinctual needs in such a way as to think that that is happiness. And so it seeks the satisfaction of its emotional needs, thinking that this will bring it happiness, and it brings gratification, which is brief, but happiness is something that perdures, and it's this life, not only of human happiness, but of divine happiness that God, at least in the Christian perspective, is trying to give, or invite us to share. It's really, God is trying to make us equal to himself, or herself, or itself, whatever. There's no pronoun you can really give to God.
Before we end, and we certainly would give His Holiness the last word, my question would be to all three of you, what about the human condition gives you the greatest confidence in this secular approach, as defined by His Holiness, to universal ethics? What about our human condition gives you the most confidence, Brother David?
Well, I like the idea that Father Thomas just now expressed, that what we call the evil in the world and all the life-denying reality that we see all around us, and that is in many ways so threatening is the not yet good. It's the not yet good. We are evolving, we are developing. And what gives me the most hope then is that we do not have to oppose it, because opposition just multiplies the problems. But we can look at it with the eyes of a mother who also finds in their children often all sorts of traits and behavior that are anything but praiseworthy and are pretty destructive. And the mother looks at them and with eyes, without having to say anything, with eyes that say, you can do better. And that creates a space into which the children can grow, into which they can grow up. And so we can look at the world with eyes of a mother and we can say, you can do better. And that is very different from opposing evil.
That's beautiful.
아멘, 박사님.
Well, we're all saying bravo to that, and it's only love that brings people fully alive, and if the children can see that between its parents and their reaction to them, this is a window onto what goodness is in the way that humans were intended to be corrected. But I just wanted to add to what you said so well. We can attribute our faults, if you're sensitive or have guilty conscience and so on, to the fall of Adam and Eve. That's been taught for centuries. But I don't think we have to anymore think of that. There's another way of looking at it. Instead of saying this person is not living up to or is committing a sin, let us say, you might say, in line with your own compassionate view, this person, like me, is not too evolved yet. So what we're waiting for is for all of us to grow up enough to be able to really live together as human beings with the capacity of sacrificing our own desires enough to really bring compassion into the world. I don't think you can do it without some modifications of our programs for happiness that are selfish.
But then, of course, there is so much to be grateful for that when we look at the positive, we will be so busy that we will have very little time to look at the negative. And there is now there is nowadays a wave of gratefulness. That word gratefulness and gratitude pops up everywhere. It is a new way of being mindful. It's a mindfulness that is interactive, because it is the gratefulness for the other. It's the interactive form of mindfulness. And our website, you mentioned, Reverend Liz mentioned our website, www.gratefulness.org. We have started this a decade ago, and we have now every day about 10,000 people coming from between 80 and 100 countries to this website, and it's just booming. There is this hunger for gratitude. I think it's a hunger for mindfulness that expresses itself interactively, because there could be misunderstandings even of mindfulness, but this interactive mindfulness, that we call gratefulness. And that wave of gratefulness that is arising in our time also gives me great hope.
Excellent. Your Holiness?
하나씩 하게 돼.
아직까지 나온단 모란 티워드레셔나.
더 가르쳐.
투슈게 히르부 가르도스. 타는데 세큘러 에틱스 졸업 유니버설 직접 그때 용해 용투설에 삼선 지다 투슈게서다 데 히르부 가르치기 위해서.
I believe 7 billion human beings. No one wants suffering. No one wants trouble, problem. At the same time, a lot of problems, essentially, our own creation. So, basically, do not want problem. But, meantime, a lot of problem created by ourselves. Then the question is ignorance. The emotion become too strong, intelligence less active, or holistic sort of
Perspective.
holistic sort of perspective less. So there, if we emphasize education, awareness, as I mentioned earlier, intelligence, objectively study, then I think this destructive emotion not only destroy, not only create some problem others, but also them themselves. While strong anger comes, while strong fear or strong attachment develop, you lose sleep, you lose appetites. Appetites. So you suffer. And then there are some scientists say constant fear, constant anger is actually eating our immune system. So then, more awareness, these things through information, through education, then I think we can reduce that ignorance. That ignorance, actually, ignorance without sort of connection with the religious sort of thing, simply do not know the long-term consequences if you let this destructive emotion without control. Then consequences, eventually, you will suffer. You have to face. Therefore, this ultimate source of problem is your own destructive emotion. So once we develop more awareness that here through education, then I think intensity of this negative emotion will reduce. That's my view.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Then, of course, to my brothers, to my brothers, and also sister, I think believe Creator. So therefore, the Creator, God, as a full of compassion, there's no reason, no factor to create evil human beings already.
Truly evil.
No, I think his son, his creation, naturally, some similar, some part of God's own sort of
Nature.
Nature, good thing. That must be there. Then all these negative things are, again, I think, our own ultimately out of ignorance. You see, these things happen. So basic nature of human being is positive. This is my view.
Yes.
And from the Buddhist viewpoint also, troubles, ultimate source of trouble is ignorance. Ignorance always have the opposite. That's the understanding. So therefore, ignorance never remains permanently because of the opposite there. So the question is whether we make attempt to develop the awareness which opposing ignorance. So that's the question. Otherwise, no matter how sort of serious ignorance, always possible to remove.
Thank you.
In many mystic literatures of the world, there's a profound experience referred to as to tremble in awe. As the expression suggests, it is not to tremble in fear, but in love and awe. Despite the 23 years with my beloved teacher in this lifetime alone, this body still trembles in awe, and this speech experiences heightened states of vibrations. I beg your pardon as I continue. Beyond religion echoes a genuine aspiration towards a secular society built on the foundations of harmony of all religious, spiritual, and philosophical traditions of the world. It is not a shallow sentiment of religious pluralism and its tolerance, but that which grows out of sincere respect for humanity and for our ecosystem. We are only what we perceive and reflect in the global context. We constantly project our beliefs and behaviors to the society at large. Bless you. We must develop a capacity to both reflect on the worst and the best that we have to offer. The magnitude of events like these proves that interdependence works. We could not have put it together without the helping hands and spirits of many. We would like to thank, first and foremost, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to put it simply, for everything. His Holiness's presence, inspiration, and tireless effort to bring humankind to actualize its enlightened potential are unprecedented. I'm grateful to the wonderful James Taylor for an inspiring opening. Thank you, sir, for your enthusiasm.
Yeah, thank you.
Heartfelt gratitude to my beloved spiritual friend and mentor, Father Thomas Keating, who agreed to descend from the mountains of Snowmass, Colorado, to participate in this. The Buddhists speak of many gradations of spiritual silence. He embodies them all. His voice is that of the early desert fathers, and his body, even if it disagrees, is at least a few hundred years old. My gratitude to Brother David Steindl-Rast, whom I had only met in the realm of voice until now. Thank you for all that you do and for reminding this world to be grateful and in a perpetual state of wonderment. My sincere thanks to the wonderful Reverend Liz Walker, whose mere presence catalyzed this all. My dear Geshe Thupten Jimpala, for the tireless service of his body, speech, and mind to become a medium to His Holiness. Someday, I would love to write an algorithm to replicate the uniqueness of Lotsavas, or great translators and interpreters. A future project for my students in artificial intelligence. Heartfelt gratitude to our virtuous friends for making all this financially and materially possible. To members of the private office based in Dharamshala for their sincerity and devotion to what they do. Office of Tibet in New York for coordinating all the efforts. Members of the State Department and DSS, Boston and Cambridge Police, and private security personnel for protecting and serving one of the most beloved leaders of the world and the people who admire him. My sincerest appreciation to the wonderful staff of Marriott Copley, especially Kathleen and Mark. Ulko Visser for bringing European precision and pliancy to this organizational logistics. To the wonderful team of staff and volunteers, Linda Krause, Melita Podesta, Scott Kennedy, Zara Hushman, and Tinsley Gallion, I want to make you aware that 100% of center funds since its inception in 2009 goes to program. The center at MIT consists of unpaid volunteer staff. Many thanks to my sounding board at the Dalai Lama Center at MIT, its board of directors and members of MIT Steering Committee for their time, dedication, and insights. My many virtuous friends who have accompanied me to this point of celebration. Due to time constraints, I cannot mention every name. You know who you are. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and it is bottomless today. I return to my ineffable gratitude to His Holiness for the kindness and guidance He has bestowed on the Dalai Lama Center for Ethics and Transformative Values at MIT. Your Holiness, may you be in good health, may you live long, may you continue to catalyze much good for all. Tradition emphasizes repeating anything of importance 3 times. All I experience is tremendous sense of gratitude. So you may hear me repeat this for the next 3 days. I invite you, and I hope to see most of you at the Global Systems Conference tomorrow at MIT and at the Stages of Meditation, Buddhism for the 21st Century, teaching on Tuesday morning, also at MIT. Thank you again for coming.
You were wonderful.
How were you? You weren't nervous.
Oh my God, I'm so glad it.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's going to come to you.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Bring James Taylor.
This way or that way?
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. You clarified a lot of good points.
Thank you.
자기 참.
Thank you.